A regular chocolate bar in the US costs around $7. But when you buy it at the airport, the price jumps to nearly $15 for just one bar. Do you know why they cost up to 120% more than when you buy them outside? The issue isn't just that passengers have limited choices. It's also due to the lack of competition among stores inside the airport. Let's go back to the early 20th century. At that time, airports looked more like train stations. Passengers constantly complained that airports were crowded, dirty, and looked run down. The glamour only began once you stepped onto the plane. Everything up there was neatly arranged, the space was clean, and attentive flight attendants were always ready to serve. But for the air travel industry to grow further, airports still needed to improve their shortcomings. They made money from passengers in every possible way. Airports built additional attractions such as observation decks, swimming pools, and tennis courts. Some places even started charging passengers for parking. And today, it has become a major source of revenue for airports. They even charged passengers for using the restroom. By the mid-20th century, airports had opened upscale restaurants to attract not only travelers, but also visitors who wanted to dine and host parties. People could go there to celebrate anniversaries, attend galas, and host elegant events. In the 1960s, airports built new terminals to serve customers who wanted to dine and enjoy enticing cocktails. These types of services were designed to attract more visitors to airports, increase customer satisfaction, help passengers relax before their flights, and of course, generate more revenue. This was the golden age of aviation. Passengers at the time described the feeling inside the airplane cabin as being as pleasant as a gentle June morning. But not many people flew back then, because ticket prices were quite expensive. It was mainly the wealthy and business people who traveled by plane. And these passengers didn't spend much time at the airport. So airport services didn't generate much revenue for the operators. But that changed in 1978, when Congress deregulated the airline industry, allowing airlines to set their own ticket prices and flight routes. The deregulation led to a full-blown price war, with airlines competing fiercely to lower their ticket prices. And as ticket prices dropped, the quality of in-flight services declined as well. Lavish meals were replaced with a small bag of crackers, some peanuts, and a can of soda. There were no more free cigarettes like in the Golden Age either. The number of air travelers in the US nearly doubled over the next decade, thanks to cheaper tickets and larger airplanes. In the 1980s, airports increased connecting flights, which led to passengers spending longer periods waiting in terminals. The large number of passengers waiting for connecting flights at the same time caused airports to become overcrowded. During the boring wait, they could shop at stores or grab some fast food. But the overall experience was far from pleasant. Passengers complained that products were marked up by 50% to 100% compared to prices outside the airport. Airports and airlines began looking for ways to make passengers feel more comfortable while waiting for their connecting flights. And their solution were shopping malls. Pittsburgh Airport opened in the early 1990s, and it was immediately well received. With more than 100 shops and restaurants, Pittsburgh Airport became the first airport in the U.S. to turn its terminal into a shopping mall. It not only made passengers much happier, but also became a major source of revenue, since each of those stores had to pay rent to the airport. In fact, according to a report, the airport's revenue skyrocketed by 75% within just 6 years. And the airport achieved that without raising product prices. It used a model known as street pricing. Basically, whatever passengers buy inside the airport costs about the same as it would outside. The county commissioner even said, "We're the first airport not to rip off customers." And the concept of the airport shopping mall turned out to be a brilliant way to make more money. Other airports poured tens of millions of dollars into renovations, hoping to replicate Pittsburgh's success. And in response to passenger complaints, these airports also adopted the street pricing model. But if airports had adopted this policy back in the 90s and early 2000s, why was that chocolate bar initially priced at nearly twice what it cost outside? Today, most U.S. airports use what they call Street Plus pricing. That means the retail price on the street, plus an additional 10 to 15%. The airport authority set this price ceiling, considering 15% a reasonable markup for those granted the franchise to sell products at the airport. Businesses aren't allowed to exceed this additional percentage, and most airports audit prices several times a year. Under this model, product prices should only be slightly higher. But the way an airport determines the street price can be a bit confusing. That nearly $15 chocolate bar came from LaGuardia in New York City, operated by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. The law requires businesses to set prices based on the average of similar items sold outside the airport, plus an additional 15%. But when checked directly, that wasn't the case. The price of that chocolate bar at stores outside the airport was actually lower than the average price cited by the local market. Because enforcement and penalties remain lax, many companies end up charging more than the street price plus the allowed 10 to 15% markup. In August 2025, Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport told Business Insider that they use Street Plus pricing with a 10% markup. But at the airport's Hudson News store, customers ended up paying 69% more than at the Walgreens outside. A Chick-fil-A chicken biscuit meal was priced 16% higher, and one of the worst cases was a box of yogurt marked up by as much as 84%. A spokesperson for the Port Authority told Business Insider that the locations are audited twice a year, or as needed, but did not comment on the price differences between airport and off-airport stores. Although most airports have pricing policies, lax enforcement often means passengers end up paying more than they would outside. But some industry insiders say that street pricing is unsustainable because running a business inside an airport is far more expensive. All staff, products, and equipment must go through security checks, which increases both construction and labor costs. Exact figures may vary, but development costs are believed to be 30 to 40% higher than outside the airport. Additionally, some cities set higher minimum wages for airport employees. And airports also require owners to operate their businesses from 4 a.m. to midnight on a regular basis. Businesses pay a percentage of their revenue to the airport, which counts as part of their rent. Businesses at this airport pay fees ranging from 6% to 20%, but the majority pay between 10% and 16%. But there's one thing these companies often don't mention: competition, or the lack thereof. In the U.S., most airport retail and food operations are run by 6 major corporations. These companies are everywhere. Worldwide, they operate over 13,000 locations. In the food court at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, passengers have 6 choices. But inside the airport, all of these restaurants are operated by a single company, HMS Host. And it goes even further. Volulta, the company that owns HMS Host, also owns the duty-free shops and Hudson News at this airport. But that's not the whole picture. A store like Prairie Market may seem like an independent business, but it's actually run by Hudson under Volulta's management. You can see this from the store displaying promotional labels for Avolta's programs. But it's not just this airport. In certain areas of LaGuardia in New York City, you can't escape Avolta's signage. Another major competitor is OTG, which operates 350 locations in North America, including the upscale food market Chibo Express, where that same yogurt was sold at 84% above the street price. Many airport businesses have multiple owners, but the major franchisees usually hold the largest stakes. And because a few big companies are present at most domestic airports, there is virtually no competition among them within a single terminal. Mergers and acquisitions are further consolidating this industry, and these companies often support airports raising the price ceiling. Phoenix Airport in Arizona completely abandoned street pricing in 2019 after two major franchise companies, HMS Host and SSP, requested an increase in the price ceiling. This means that, in theory, there's no limit to what businesses can charge. And when every airport charges high prices, passengers have no other choice. This became an even more serious issue after the events of September 11th. New security measures significantly increased so-called dwell time in terminals. Studies have shown that for airports, the longer passengers wait, the higher the revenue from food and retail. About 63% of airport passengers end up buying something, partly due to boredom, as the average wait time at airports is quite long, around 2 hours. Only very experienced travelers usually pass through security with an empty bottle and then fill it at a water station. But that's a very small percentage of passengers. For more than 2 decades, airports have maximized passengers' wait time, and franchisees have made a lot of money. Usually, passengers can't reach their gates without passing through food or retail areas. These stores stimulate their appetites, making them crave more and more likely to purchase, something essential for the business model. U.S. airports earn nearly half of their revenue from non-aeronautical sources, such as passenger parking and food sales. In 2024, U.S. airports generated more than twice the revenue from food and beverages compared to 2010. So, are there any airports in the U.S. where passengers don't have to pay excessively high prices? And one of the few airports that doesn't use Street Plus pricing is in Portland, Oregon. It's pure street pricing. Whatever they sell is priced the same as in downtown stores or their street locations. No fees, no surcharges. At Portland Airport, the franchise fee percentage that the airport collects is based on the business's sales volume. And it has worked. Passenger spending per flight at Portland is about $15.03, roughly 20% higher than the national average of around $12.50. Portland has used street pricing for decades. But in reality, some airports are going in the opposite direction. Since 2010, Los Angeles International Airport has used Street Plus pricing with an 18% markup. But they removed that ceiling for most items in 2025 in response to complaints about rising minimum wages at the airport. The Airport Restaurant and Retail Association wants flexible pricing, in other words, no limits. They argue that overall passenger satisfaction is more important than price. But the 6 major airport food and retail operators are primarily focused on increasing profits. Part of Avolta's long-term strategy is to continuously drive passenger spending and maximize profits from their commercial spaces. So far, this strategy has been quite successful. At a time when everything seemed more expensive, some passengers may have felt frustrated and limited their spending inside the airport. A 2024 J.D. Power survey of North American airports showed that passengers were spending less in terminals compared to the previous year. It also revealed that food and beverage prices received the lowest satisfaction scores in their survey in many years. In May 2025, members of Congress wrote a letter requesting the Federal Trade Commission to investigate franchise pricing at airports and stadiums. They stated that with limited choices, travelers face extremely marked up prices for food and drinks before their flights. What do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below to let us know. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to join us on future journeys.